Jags and the Chiefs defense freeze out the Miami Dolphins offense on Saturday night in the super wild card matchup at Arrowhead, week 1 of the postseason. The Kansas City Chiefs will move on, and they are still waiting to see who their opponent will be depending on the game on Monday night between the Bills and Steelers in Buffalo, or Monday afternoon, I guess, as they switch that up. It was supposed to be on Sunday, now on Monday instead. Other big news in the football world: Bill Belichick and the Patriots officially part ways. Nick Saban retires as the Alabama Crimson Tide head coach. So a lot of crazy shifts going on in the football world already, as the college season, of course, is over, but NFL season still with the playoffs to go. As well as Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, that's the one I was missing. Pete Carroll does end up basically taking a sidestep, going into some type of, I forget off the advisor role with the Seattle Seahawks, and they will be looking for a new head coach as well. The New England Patriots have announced that Gerard Mayo is going to take over that head coaching role, and I think this is a good move. Kind of seeing what the Raiders have done, Antonio Pierce, what he's done with that locker room. Maybe Gerard Mayo can have the same kind of effect on the New England locker room, as they're really going to need a boost going into next year. And they've got a good offseason, good position in the offseason to maybe make something happen, see if they can go out and get a quarterback for that team, as Mac Jones kind of has proved he's probably not the guy for the future. But all that aside, let's go back to Saturday night, where the Chiefs defeated the Dolphins. I'm just going to pull up the stat sheet. We'll go over that real quick. Tua ended up with 199 yards, 1 touchdown, the 1 interception as well. Patrick Mahomes, as Mike Edwards picked him off, I think it was pretty early in the game. Patrick Mahomes, 262 yards, 1 touchdown. And how about Isaiah Pacheco, 24 carries? That might be the most carries I've ever seen from a running back in Andy Reid's time here with Kansas City Chiefs. Is 24 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. And Pacheco was phenomenal in the beginning. Ended up with only 3.7 yards per carry, but at the beginning of the game, Pacheco absolutely set the tone for the Kansas City Chiefs offense to really move the ball down the field, and they did a great job all night with that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 7 for 21. In the receiving department, Rashee Rice, a huge night, breaking the rookie playoff record, 130 yards off 8 catches and a touchdown as well for him. Other notables, Kelsey had a big game, 7 catches for 71 yards. And other than that, really kind of everybody just in a role, as Justin Watson topped everybody else with 2 catches for 20 yards. Noah Gray, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Richie James, McCole Hardman all had 1 reception. And McCole Hardman really had a terrible game as a couple of different times. He really had plays where it's just kind of thought, what is the point of throwing deep to Hardman at that point? And especially with the Tyreek Hill play, as Tyreek Hill ended up with 5 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown on 8 targets. Had a pretty good game. But the one big play, the 53-yard touchdown bomb to him, and just going to see, the way Tyreek tracked the ball in the air, was able to catch it, scored a touchdown, and drew the defensive pass interference. Absolutely phenomenal, and that's why he's one of the best receivers in the game. Him and probably Justin Jefferson, I would say, are the two, 1A, 1B in the NFL at this point. But Tyreek Hill, other than that, though, when you look at it, let's see, on his other 4 catches, just 9 yards on those other 4 catches. I don't know if you could hear that audio come through, but I was just watching the end of this Rams and Lions game. As looks like the Lions have won 24-23 final score. The Lions moving on. That's really quite the story, having Matt Stafford go in and face Jared Goff in Detroit in a playoff game. And I don't know how many years exactly. I think 30-plus years since they have won a playoff game. I think had a playoff game at home. So really cool to see, just because, as a Chiefs fan going through that 50 years that we did without getting a Super Bowl, and just tough times. It seemed like the Chiefs were really just cursed, honestly, year in, year out. Finally getting that win at Houston, and I can't remember off the top of my head what year that was, sometime in the mid-2010s. Then being able to get some playoff games at home, and then now here in the Patrick Mahomes era, it's a completely different ball game. Winning a couple of Super Bowls, going to 3 of them, and they're right on that path again. The defense was phenomenal on Saturday night, and a frigid Arrowhead with the temperatures going down. I think in the wind chill to negative 27. I think it was 4 degrees. 4 or negative 4, I can't remember exactly, at kickoff, but the fourth coldest game of all time in the NFL, and actually the first time the Chiefs have ever beaten the Dolphins in the playoffs. So, interesting little tidbit there. But Tyreek Hill comes back in. One thing that I was shocked at to see was that they booed Stafford in Detroit, which I just thought was kind of insane. And I didn't see anything where Tyreek Hill got booed at Arrowhead at all. And I wondered how that would go, just because I've seen things back and forth. But it seems like, for the most part, most of Chiefs Kingdom is we're kind of past the trade. We're kind of past everything with, the Tyreek Hill situation and him, kind of forcing his way out, going to Miami, getting the big paycheck, which, hats off to him. And he's had 2 of the best seasons of his entire career. He's got an offense that's built pretty much solely around him. And, that's what Tyreek Hill wanted, I think. And, there's nothing wrong with that. He felt like he could help produce a team like this, make other guys around him better. And I think Andy Reid's offense and the way it's set up is just not meant to have, somebody be the real sole just emphasis of the entire offense, other than, the quarterback, really. I mean, at the end of the day, with what Patrick Mahomes does and brings to the table, I mean, it's hard to center your offense around at least for Andy Reid, I guess I'll say, because it's not necessarily hard to center your offense around, one guy or, an attack, but scheming, them open. And I mean, Tyreek Hill experienced a lot of that in Kansas City, of just being able to flow in the offense. But I do think he outgrew the offense to a point, and it shows with what he's done in Miami. He's done an absolutely amazing job. And again, I think it was around the time that the Chiefs played the Dolphins in Germany, talked about this for a minute as well, and just, is the greatest receiver to ever wear a Kansas City Chiefs uniform, honestly. I mean, at the end of the day, the Chiefs haven't had a lot of great receivers in their time. It's been tight ends. You look at Tony Gonzalez, now Travis Kelce. I mean, other than that, Dwayne Bowe is, statistically one of your top receivers. So the Chiefs just haven't seen a lot of, as well as Otis Taylor, but, the Chiefs have not seen a ton of elite level receivers like a Tyreek Hill. And, that's what we're really hoping to see, I think, moving forward for the Chiefs, and see Rashee Rice really develop into this next level star. I mean, because at this point, his rookie season was a great trajectory, just up all season. It started off rough, and I was very critical of Rashee Rice in the beginning, and I thought that was a bad pick in the beginning. The night that they drafted him, it seems like the Chiefs have this tendency to kind of go with the guy you wouldn't necessarily expect. Look at McCole Hardman. You could have had DK Metcalf. Instead, it's McCole Hardman. In this situation with Rashee Rice, honestly, I don't remember who all was still on the board, but I feel like there was 1 or 2 other guys that I could have seen going in front of Rashee Rice. But he's developed perfectly in this offense and has really started to pick it up, and I think that the sky is the limit for Rashee Rice. And one thing that I kind of talked about on Twitter today, I put a thread together of just talking about how, the Chiefs really have to focus on rebuilding this receiving core this offseason, and maybe even adding a little bit of youth at tight end. You have Blake Bell, obviously, lower in the depth chart. Noah Gray is your number 2 to Kelce, but, Kelce has slowed down this year. It's been apparent, and, obviously he had that hyperextended knee going into the season, and that was, week 1, right before week 1, so something he's probably been dealing with all season long. And especially you get to that age, I think he's 34 at this point. You start getting up there in age, then things linger around, and maybe next year he comes back 100% healthy and he's, right back with it. But also, the coverages and what teams are designing to, hone in on Kelce. And I think that without having the receivers around him to kind of react to that is making it even more difficult for Kelce, obviously. So Rashee Rice coming into his own is going to be huge. MVS obviously probably not back. Justin Watson, we'll see. Sky Moore, I think, is still going to be on his rookie deal, so he will be there. And I think improvements can be had on Sky Moore, but obviously I was very high on him going into the season. I will not feel the same going into the next season. We'll see what happens with Mecole Hardman, but you really have to begin to rebuild this. And maybe moving on from Blake Bell and adding, a rookie or at least somebody young to that tight end position, I think would help start to kind of nurture a turnover of just, I think Noah Gray is that guy. I think he is actually really, really good and can really come in and fill a void that, obviously at this point you're looking. I don't think Kelce's going to retire anytime soon, but you got to start thinking about those next few steps and who's going to help him, complement him the best here in his, final years, because at the end of the day, it is the twilight of his career right now. So, but I think that's definitely a conversation to be had for the offseason. We'll get way more into detail on that, but I just think the receiving core, I think everybody feels the same way, has to be rebuilt this offseason, and they have to build something around Rashee Rice and ready to attack and win games, because you only get Patrick Mahomes once in a generation, and the Chiefs know all too well about that. It's not like Green Bay, where Green Bay just seems to rattle off these quarterbacks every 10 to 15 years, right? Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, now Jordan Love, an amazing game against Dallas today on Sunday afternoon, and taking down the Cowboys in the fashion that they did was wild. I'm excited to see the Packers the rest of the way through, and really on film, that was one of the last films that I've worked on, and on film, Jordan Love looks really good. So, hats off to Green Bay, but these quarterbacks don't come around all the time. As Len Dawson was the last really elite quarterback the Chiefs were able to see, and no discredit to Alex Smith, but Alex Smith was a great quarterback, but just not that same level of elite like you have with Patrick Mahomes here. So you really have to quickly rebuild something around Mahomes and get this offense to get going again. I think, everything's still there. The offensive line still looks really good, and Wanya Morris, I think, is going to be a very good draft pick just from the little bit we saw from him this year. But anyways, we'll get more into all that in the offseason after this run. So next week, Chiefs are still TBD. We will see. It's either going to be the Texans or the Texans would come to Arrowhead if the Steelers win tomorrow against the Bills, and the Bills would stay at home and host the Chiefs next week if they do win in Buffalo, and Buffalo finally possibly getting a playoff home game against the Kansas City Chiefs. That would be huge for the Bills, I think, just to kind of sway that dynamic a little bit. And I really would like to see a rematch between the Bills and the Chiefs, just because that was a game that the Chiefs, I definitely could have won. I think with the way Josh Allen turns the ball over, that's a very winnable game for the Kansas City Chiefs, and especially if their offense is going to continue to play how they played Saturday night, I think they'll be fine. I think winning the turnover battle and just being a competent offense, being able to move the ball down the field, is really what they have lacked all year. The penalties, too. The penalties have killed them. So those three things are really what, the drops, I guess, really is what I'm kind of saying with the just be a competent offense, but just being able to, the play calling, too, goes into that, of just play calling, and not the mental errors. And if the Chiefs can do that, the Chiefs can, honestly, I think they can win the whole thing. This is one of the craziest years in the last 5 to 10 years, it seems like, where just everybody has a lot wrong with them, other than the Ravens, really. The Ravens, and them going to get Mark Andrews back is huge. So other than the Ravens, I feel like on the AFC side, everybody has, some pretty major holes in their game. And, I think the Chiefs, as long as they can just put it together for 60 minutes at a time, 15 minutes at a time, that they can, one drive at a time, they can march their way to the Super Bowl and win another Super Bowl, I think, with this team. It's not going to be easy, but as long as you, get the mental errors out, this defense can carry this offense. I do believe. So will be an interesting game up there in Buffalo. The pictures and videos that I've seen from Buffalo have looked insane, which it has been brutal in Kansas City this weekend. Very frigid temperatures all weekend, snow on the ground, and snowed, I think, Friday and Tuesday or Wednesday as well. So, and I'm not sure if we're still planning on getting more snow or not. So there may be more snow through the week, just depending on if the Texans end up having to come to Kansas City. It is going to be cold either way. I don't know what the weather is like in Baltimore for that game. But either way, so the Chiefs are still going to, face a cold game either way, whether it's here in Kansas City or out in Buffalo. I think both matchups are interesting. And honestly, the most dangerous matchup might be Houston, just the way that they're firing on all cylinders in the AFC right now. I think the Ravens have, the most put together out of any team. Honestly, on the AFC or NFC side, I feel like they are the team to beat right now, honestly. I mean, Lamar is playing on another level, as well as the rest of the team. The defense is absolutely wonderful for the Ravens. The only defense that, statistically is better than the Kansas City Chiefs, points per game wise. So at least I'm pretty sure. I have to double check that one, but I'm pretty sure it's like 16 something for the Ravens and 17.1 or something like that for the Chiefs. They're neck and neck right there. At least last time that I checked. So it's going to be an interesting week. This was a great win for the Chiefs. Great performance to build on for Rashee Rice. Travis Kelce as well, as he was, back to his normal self. It seemed like the playoffs started and the Chiefs were like, okay, we're here. It's time to put it all on the line. The play calling was phenomenal for the Chiefs all night. And I think Andy Reid is just going to get deeper into that bag the further we go through the playoffs and just continue to show, his masterclass skill of play calling. And, it looked like a well-oiled machine out there Saturday night. So hoping that we get more of the same. I plan to be back before next weekend, and we'll talk about the upcoming game once we know who the Chiefs are playing. If you enjoyed this podcast, if you are watching over on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe if you have not already. Whatever platform you are listening on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, follow, hit the follow button, like the episode, and any feedback would be much appreciated. What do you think about the Chiefs? How deep do you think this playoff run ends up going? And how much better do they look, in your opinion, Saturday night than they have here towards the end of the season? So either way, we will see you next time. And until then, go Chiefs.